Hello there. It is Friday afternoon, November 8th. I'm Rob, that developer dad, as I am known around here. And I'm building applications with C# and .NET. I'm getting ready. Hey, what's up, Skod? I'm getting ready to launch the DM's Familiar under a very private, very limited sort of first batch of paid users, just from my friend and acquaintance group and so on and so forth, so that I can start getting user feedback and really start fixing up the UI and making it good. Addressing any issues that I haven't found in the application yet. But before I do that, there are a couple of things that I need to do in the application so that I don't go broke on hosting costs. And I'm spinning the application up now. We'll go over to the screen share, let it load. And Skod, who's in the chat, was a big help this morning in helping me get these buttons protected. So this morning's work, I took these two buttons and wrapped them in some protection code. I've basically got a property set on this particular control or component, the view NPC attributes razor component, that checks the current user's quota amount and makes sure they've got enough quota to be able to do the action that the button reveals. So we've got this, and I need to, let's go ahead and generate the description. And there's Blinky Kitty. And now I need to wrap that around the save townsperson here. And that's on view NPC details, I believe. So I'm going to go ahead and save my halfling, Mr. Milo Greenhill, who is a scribe and grew up as a hermit. So we'll save that, go back to the list. And there's more stuff that I want to do on some of these controls. Like, it doesn't make sense on the view control to have save townsperson down here unless changes have been made. Generate new AI description. Maybe I'm going to wait until I get into setting up an editor for this stuff. And I might actually reduce it down to the ability to generate specific AI or specific attributes by AI when I get to that point. So what it'll basically do is send this character off to the AI and ask it just to regenerate the background or what have you. I have thought about that. It's a great idea. I might, if I do it, I'm not going to do it until I get into edit. So let's see here. Save townsperson on this screen. I don't want to use a componentized save button for this because there's going to be additional logic on here when it doesn't make sense to show it. So I believe this is the only other constrained control, and this would be on view NPC details. Yeah, okay, so let's close up the attributes component stuff, and let's take a look at view NPC details razor. And we're okay here. Let's take a look at the footer. If is save button visible. Now let's go over here to the definition. And I'm going to rename it because it's going to move from being a read-only property to being a private field. This is one of the things that Skod recommended to me. Now I need a private async task of bool should show save button. And I'm just going to cut that, back all that stuff out, and if save NPC is null, we're going to return false. Otherwise, derp, return false. Otherwise, we're going to return true. Save. If app context that's a class. I don't have a property for that right now. So while we're making these initial changes, parameter use metric, view NPC details. Let's do that. And I want to do grab this guy. Oops, didn't want to do that. I want to extract method. Extract method will be set action button states. And it's going to be a async task is save button visible equals await. Groovy. And let's test. Code a little, test a little. Excuse me. And make sure everything's a-okay. NPCs come into view. It should still be visible. Good. Next thing, I need to actually go back to the view NPC attributes and grab that cascading property. And that's in the code behind. Zap that. Not the CSS, but the C#. Parameter, cascading parameter, here we are. Copy that. And I'm going to go ahead and move that up here. Cool. Now, there's something I like to do with private fields. So I need that underscore is save button visible. You, my friend, are going up to the top. Save. And now I go to where I was down here. So should show save button. If, I believe it's app, nope. What did I call that darn property? App context, good. equals null. We're going to return false. And then I need to var user quota equals app context dot, and this needs to be awaited because this is async. Get user limits if user quota is null. We're going to GTFO int available storage slots equals user quota dot npcs in storage dot available quota, and we'll null coalesce that to 0. Oh, that's not a nullable value. Cool. And then finally, if available storage slots less than or equal to 0, return false. And my mouth and brain said if, and my fingers said int, so we'll fix that. Save. All right. Save that. And let's run it. NPCs, view, and it's still visible. Cool. Now, private bool has changes, not partial, private has changes. That's always going to be false, right? So we'll go to set action button states. We'll go to should show save button. And before we get into the heavy duty async, we got to call out to other components. If has changes equals false, we're going to return false. Now that could screw me over. So NPC clicked, current NPC. New NPC client model. False is visibility. Why don't I merge the 3 if conditions into one? There's a couple of rationalizations I can make for doing it this way. Number one, each of these represents a discrete rule. This is the beginning of sort of a cascading set of conditions that, if app context is null, we can't evaluate any of the other requirements. So we're going to bounce. Same thing with user quota. And then, of course, finally, if we get through these two and they exist, but the available storage slots is 0 or less, then we have to say false. Now, for these two up here, I mean, I could do if save NPC clicked is null or has changes is false, return false. I could do that. I have a suspicion that the compiler is going to make that optimization for me. And this feels a whole lot more readable than combining those if statements into compound expressions. In fact, why don't we take this stuff, let me just Alt and just select this one block. Let's copy that. And let's come in here. Yeah, I've done inlines before. Hey, question about the C# compiler. Will it reduce the following lines of code into a single expression as an optimization at build time? The pasted code feels much more readable to me. Keeping the code's readability and structure intact while performing optimizations. The compiler will not reduce it into a single expression. Manually combine the conditions. Yeah, I don't want to combine the conditions. Okay, so you know what? I don't think it makes a huge difference in terms of performance to have these two if blocks exist separately. I have done the compound expressions in the past, and as I get older, I kind of want to see things nice and explicit and plain. Because when I come back to this in 6 months, I'm going to want to be able to just like skim over the code and get an immediate understanding of what it's doing. That's why like I'll do this instead of that. Let's type it correctly. From a functional point of view, from an execution point of view, this is identical to the longer form that I type out, but as somebody who is frequently in a hurry and doesn't want to have to really squint at all of the different, each individual line of code to get an understanding, I really like the explicit false test. Now, has changes is always going to be false, even when I load in from a brand new or a newly generated AI description. So I am going to need current NPC, view NPC details, uninitialized async, if current NPC dot NPC model dot ID 0 equals 0 has changes equals true. NPC ID equals current NPC. There we go. And now I'll just do it here. This might not be the appropriate place to put this code. I fully admit that. Pattern matching, you know what? That's a C# feature that I haven't gotten into yet. I remember way back in the day when I was doing a lot of work in Visual Basic and visualbasic.net, I could do like a select case true, and the individual cases, instead of being a constant value, I could actually perform a Boolean expression for my different cases, and that'd work really, really nicely. But no, I haven't monkeyed with pattern matching in C# yet. ID is null. Okay, so that's fine. Now let's hit view. And that didn't do it for me. Let's go back to the list. We'll generate a new NPC. Although, wait. So my save button is not visible in a pure view context. That's great. That's what I want to see happening. Now, let's just generate somebody real quick. Yeah, okay. Generate that. And we still don't have our view button. So that's not good for us. So I need to capture where I am going when the NPC is changed. Should show save button, get user limits, loading overlay. Uninitialized, view NPC details. Save NPC clicked. All right. So, I bet an appropriate place for this would be not an on-save NPC clicked, but and then the uninitialized isn't an override that I want to do. Protected override. Maybe on parameters set. And let's just drop a breakpoint here. Restart. Nullable analyzer. Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure I've got that. Let me double check. Just to be for sure. Nullable, yeah, it's enabled. That gets enabled by default. Now let's see when on parameters set gets fired. Come into NPCs, I can close that out. Go. All right. Good Lord. Let's disable this. Now I'll re-enable, come back to the UI, and hit view. Okay, so that tells me and now I will await set action button states. And I get rid of this on parameters set async. Get lost. Async. There we go. Now let's take this for a spin. Yeah, the nullable analyzer is totally on, man. Okay, so there's that. Let's hit view. And I has a suspicion I want to add a breakpoint there. Let's go back to the list. Oh, jeepers. NPC name, owner ID is not set. Text description. ID is null. Okay, and I have a suspicion that when I am on my NPC list and I click show view button as string, on view NPC clicked, let's go to the definition, view NPC handler.invoke, okay, and create NPC.razor. Let's go here. Current NPC equals await load NPC. Go to definition. Okay, we'll get all this stuff. Go to that definition. I feel like that's probably full of it. Yep. That's also full of it. And I feel like the NPC, the townsperson object, is not being populated in the manager. That's my sneaky suspicion. That can go away. This thing is so silly. Debug. Build, rebuild. It's like Rosalind gets ahead of herself. I'm like, there's no way these interface violations could be happening if, yeah, that's nonsense. Like, let's take a look at this. here. So save townsperson. It's taken in the townsperson UID. Yeah, it's just not. Rosalind's getting a little bit confused. Now, NPC access, load NPC. I'm going to drop a breakpoint right here. And access result.payload, character details.to instance. Okay. And I'm in load townsperson. I am. If manager payload dot ID. Oh, that's on the initializer only. Some serializations of townsperson may not include the ID or owner ID. We should rectify this now. If manager payload dot owner dot user ID equals null, manager payload dot set owner to user ID. Save. If manager payload dot ID equals null. Now, ID is an init only property. Tampered with while they're sitting in a client browser. And that's a good idea in spirit, but I do have an internal void set ID. Now, I don't believe townsperson is in the same namespace. Oh, it's in the townsfolk manager contracts. So, manager payload dot set ID to NPC ID. Nope. What's the townsperson ID? Save. Okay. We've got that, so we're setting it on load. And let's see if that helps us out at all. So we're loading up. We've got this. Let's view. And I'm just going to step over this stuff. Deserialize that JSON. Manager payload.user ID is an empty string, but manager payload is null. Stop. Set owner is expecting a string, so that's good. So I'm going to have to do an is null or white space on that one. Just go. Oh, you stink. Stop. Yeah, for some goofy reason. Build, clean. Rosalind's lost her little mind here. Go to the definition. Yes, it does take 2 arguments. So build, clean. While I'm in here, I'll do if string.is null or white space equals true. Get rid of this, these little, hey, that might be null. There we go. Save all that stuff. We fixed that up. And let's rebuild just in case the compiler is feeling silly. Debug. No, I'm not going to delete all breakpoints. I am, however, going to drop one here. Run. And let's make sure that ID gets plumbed back out to the UI. So let's load up the scribe. Access results, okay. Get rid of that breakpoint. Carry through. And get rid of this one. Run. Make sure user ID is being set. Townsperson is being set. And save townsperson for some reason is still visible here. So we'll come back out to npcdetails.razor.cs. And do that. Now, NPC list razor on view NPC clicked. Go to definition. Oh, yeah. So the actual code that I care about is going to be in components, create NPC, and View NPC handler, we'll go to on NPC list, view clicked, go to definition, load NPC, page states.details, state has changed. Good. Now I should have an on AI generated thing. Generate get AI description, user set owner, get AI description, client model, return NPC AI. Who calls you? And theoretically, state is changed, should ripple out to all of this stuff. But we shall see. And that means this should pause here. So let's come back here. We'll go back to the list. Get rid of that because I don't want to hit that breakpoint however million times it's trying to get hit. And let's load up Mira. Okay, we're getting that stuff. And I just want to step. Manage your result payload. ID is 60, user ID is correct. That stuff's all populated. Now, current NPC is what's her face. Owner ID is here. NPC model, there's the ID on that, but that's Milo, not the current one. And this is the new one that we just loaded. But we have not changed that stuff. So I'm betting that in action button states, I need to call state has changed. Save. Restart the app. And status change should trigger a re-render. Let's just go. View. And that for some reason is still visible. Back to list. NPC list razor. On view NPC clicked. Go to definition. Here we go. Let's view. The NPC ID I need is 63. Let's go. current NPC is, yep, that one. NPC ID is 63, good. We're gonna flip to here. State has changed. I'm going to re-render the list. Okay, so what I got to do, review, okay. So over in wherever the heck I was, go to definition. So I don't need to do this because it's basically inside an event handler. Is there like the equivalent of an on-show event? Parameters set. Uninitialized. Yeah, it's not, because this guy isn't really firing when I would expect it to be. So come in here. It's firing now while it's constructing the whole tree. Now I'm going to put the button back, or the breakpoint back here on parameters set. And we'll just try to load one of these. I'm going to bounce out of here. And we're into parameters set. So this is currently null. Look at the NPC model. And for some crazy reason, my ID is null. So let's continue. Now my ID is 60. And of course, it's losing its mind because I timed out. Enough of that. Continue. Now let's bring this back. Whenever a parameter changes, the onParameters set is hit. I'll have to deal with logic when that happens so it doesn't run unnecessary code each time. Okay. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Because doing it on a init didn't feel like the right place to do it, because it gets initialized when the app spins up, and I load the create NPC component. This is a child component of create NPC. And in here on parameters set, stop. As changes equals false. So we're going to set that value, and then only if the NPC ID is 0. Let's try this. Pop in here. Eliminate that for now. Oh, wait. I do want this breakpoint. Don't want that breakpoint. Now I want it back. And let's just pick Zara. As changes equals false. Continue. And we're back again because my current NPC is, where is she? There's Zara. Let's take a look at my model. The ID is 63. So continue. And there is no save button. I have gotten what I want. So we're going to come back here. We're going to hit this a million friggin' times. Do I have a display mode property here? Visibility. If equals true. I'll get that settled in a second. Control X, V, use metric, save NPC click, app context. Yeah, that visibility ain't gonna help me. Yeah, I'll sort out some sort of flag value for that at some point so that this isn't running 8 million times. And I got to restart the app because I have changed the code. So that appears to be functioning correctly. Yeah, fine. Initialize, do your thing. Good. I can load. Great. make a new NPC. So save is perfectly legal here. We want to be able to save. And yeah, let's generate. And we have save here. And this is just the view NPC details component that we've just been working in. Save townsperson. It has gone away. And back to the list. We win. I have got that UX done. So I can commit on this branch. Adds additional checks when the UI is determining whether to show or hide the Save NPC button and the Generate AI Details button. It's a modified git flow. Basically, I'll do like a feature branch or a defect branch or what have you. And sometimes I'll publish over to my app service from the feature branch just to see how it runs in Azure. But otherwise, I don't have automatic deployment. I do have a button in Git where I can actually launch the deploy to Azure process against any of the branches that I currently have active in the repo. But yeah, it's sort of a modified Git flow. I think when I go live with this, what I want to do is stand up right now I'm just using the app services free. So I'm going to go to an app service basic tier and I'm going to regenerate the push action, obviously, because it's going to be going to a different destination. But I want to keep the free tier around for like a development environment, like a dev and QA type environment kind of thing. And when I deploy to the actual production version, I'm considering going off of a release branch that I would cut from main. Hot fixes would be done against the release branch, merge back down to main, push those all out to features, etc., etc. But new stuff goes from feature to main. And then when I am ready to deploy, I'll create a new release branch off of main with that current version and push to production from there. I don't know if that's Git flow. It feels like the most logical and sane way of doing things, at least from the perspective of being a solo developer, architect, maintainer, etc., etc. If I had somebody else working on this with me, we would each be working in our feature branches. The code would stay in the feature branch until it's ready to be merged to main. And then, of course, we would push over to the dev QA environment that I'm currently using now, test it. Once we decide, okay, we're good for release, cut the release branch, out it goes. And maybe like delete the old release branches after, I don't know, 2, maybe 3 subsequent releases. Because eventually I'm probably going to have to get into versioning my APIs and stuff like that when I split the UI off into its own hosting scenario and the backend API into its own hosting scenario and all of that stuff. As soon as I start distributing and pulling stuff like that, Main and develop. No errors in the code. Feature branches. Yep. Might have errors. Yeah. No, I don't have a develop branch. I'm assuming that develop is a descendant from main, and the features are cut from develop. And that's actually a pattern I've used in the past. Yeah, basically. I'm the pattern I'm planning to do is slightly different. In the pattern I'm planning to use, you can consider main and develop to be the same thing, but we don't publish production from main. We publish production from a release branch that, if you're viewing it as like a timeline or a graph in your head that runs horizontally, release would be above main, but those branches would still be transient. Those branches would survive only as long as that version of the code is in production. I honestly haven't put that much thought into it. I'm just doing what I'm used to and feels comfortable. But yeah, main with a dev below. Dev is for stabilization. Features are for the raw code grinding. And yeah, basically, so the develop branch and what you've described would act as the stabilization and integration branch. And then once that integration branch is good, up to main it goes. That makes sense. So we've got our set action button states. I've got that. I am going to push, but I'm not going to pull request yet because I got a bunch of testing that I got to do on this stuff before I push it over to Azure. So I'm going to keep this branch alive. I'm not going to merge the code in yet because I do still want to do a good bit of just hands-on screen, eyes-on keyboard testing. All right. I do have some unit tests. I typically reserve unit tests for engines, basically calculation type things. Unit testing resource access doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Unit testing managers doesn't really make a whole ton of sense to me, because all a manager is doing is essentially routing the flow or routing the execution to the components that actually do stuff. Unit testing databases or file systems or whatever is, honestly, in my opinion, a waste of time. You have to test them eventually, but those are more integration tests. I do have unit tests. No, I don't want to look at the project. Where's my test exploder? Yeah. So against the dice engine, I have 1,526 tests on like the dice bag. Now, I've only got a handful of methods and combinations of these tests. I'll show you. So expect dice rolled equals num dice. Roll adjustments, roll modifiers, etc., right? But the way I've got these set up is each one of the 80 permutations, because each method I am testing different number of dice for each kind of dice, as well as whether it's being rolled with advantage or disadvantage, or with a after roll modifier. So and I'm testing between 1 and 10 dice, I think, for each of them. And then each one of these is being executed with that permutation. How many times? Let me look. I set all that stuff up here. Oh, yeah. So 1 through 10 of each kind of math rock. So tests per kind is 10. I'm rolling the dice 1,000 times for each of those runs. And that's giving me, well, that's 1,500 times 1,000. 1.5 million tests. In a little more than 2 seconds. So yeah, my dice bag works. And the reason I'm doing that many rolls per test run is because I am using math.random. And what I'm doing is I'm just essentially doing a little bit of statistical analysis on the runs. So I've got a list of dice trays. I do the experiment. I basically just add 1,000 runs, and then I make sure that every result out of those runs meets my assertion. So all dice trays in our test batch have a positive non-zero value, and that's all I want. So yeah, unmodified roll, expect positive. Unmodified roll must be at least n. So if I roll 5d6, every result out of that 1,000 executions must be at least 5. Must be no more than, say, 30 in the case of 5d6. And, as I said, I'm dealing with a random number generator. So running that once, there's no way I'm going to prove that it's going to work every damn time. But statistically speaking, for dice types from D2 through D100, if I run that 1,000 times, it's going to pass. And the only reason I'm only running it 1,000 times is because I want it to go quick. We could get weird. We could get really weird. Runs per test is 100. Blah, 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 blah. Unit test should be fast. Where was that 1,000 that I had? Oh, yeah. Okay. Dice bag, no modifier test data. Dice bag, adjust result test data. Oh, yeah, that's right. And then, yeah. So, let's bump it to 10K. And we'll bump this to 10K. What the hell? And run them. This is going to take a little longer. A little longer. But it also tells me that I'm able to run how many million dice rolls per second is this doing? So 30 seconds. I've got I think I've got 10. How many kinds of math rocks have I got? I didn't want to go to that. I want to go to this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 times 5 is 40. Times, well, let's call it 16. No, wait. 11 and 0 is 12. Down to minus 5 is 17. So 40 times 17, whatever the hell that is, times 10,000. So 40 times 20 is 800. So 780 times 10,000 is 7.8 thousand times 1,000. So 7.8 million. No, I don't need anything done with the dough. So 7.8 million just on that particular set of tests. And then 80 times 10,000. So 800,000 on this one. Yeah. 1,100 is fine. There. So yeah, for things that are doing calculations where it's not reaching out to any dependencies or anything like that, absolutely I will unit test the snot out of those. If you look at the rules utility repository under that developer dad account in GitHub, you'll see another large number of unit tests on the rules on the rule expression execution part, where I'm basically testing each primitive type that's supported with the operators that are supported for that type. For things that would have to call out to some external resource that I don't have absolute control over, I'm not going to write unit tests for those. I really need to get into learning how to do integration testing, where I would have coded test cases that I could fire against my Azure system. But I would need to do that instead of against the UI. I mean, I suppose I could get whatever that UI automation thingy is. I'm not an expert with it. But what I would do is actually create my tests against this workload provider. So I'd create a console app. Yes. So I create a console app that basically exercises all of the methods on here, and that's going to test my API. And at that point, I'd actually probably want to mock out the AI workload manager. I'd probably want to mock out some of my storage, or at least have some scripts that would run after the fact that would tear down all of the data in that storage. So yeah, I'd have to think very, very carefully about executing those automated tests. And I certainly wouldn't want to be running them 10,000 times, because that'll blow up my Azure bill. But having some sort of automated smoke test against this API component, that actually feels like a good idea. It's just time I don't want to take right now. All right. So this has been an incredibly productive day with extra thanks to Skod who has been an amazing help in helping me get over some of the Blazor intricacies that I've been running into, because he knows it better than I do, and a is a helpful person. So I appreciate that a whole lot, dude. Yeah, Monday, I'm going to iterate on the character generation AI prompt a little bit. I don't yet have the prompt development workspace built that I want to build. So I'm just going to do it in app code rather than go to all the work of building a prompt creation, testing, storage, system. I'm going to do that eventually, because testing against hard-coded prompt strings is a pain in the neck. And iterating on those prompts that are hard-coded in the code is a pain in the neck. But, yeah. Monday we're going to flesh out and try to get the AI stuff a little more descriptive than it is. When I first started, I was using Phi 3 Mini as the backing model that was running on my local laptop, and it got chatty occasionally and would hallucinate a lot more than GPT-4o running in Azure does. But GPT-4o tends to be a lot more terse than I want it to be. And I also want to test out GPT-4o Mini, because that's going to drop my AI costs by an order of magnitude. So yeah. And I'm not necessarily chasing profit. I do want to control the cost because I don't want to go broke running this. But at the same time, reducing my token costs by an order of magnitude also means I can do a lot more with those tokens. And it means I can work it so that it's better output for my users. I'll be using more tokens, but it's going to cost me, and therefore them, about the same or maybe a little less. So yeah, today was a good day. Skod, thanks again. I'm going to go have a weekend. I'm going to do some more work stuff, but I have to make some pizza for our youngest, who is not so young anymore. They are turning 21 tomorrow, and they're going out with their buddies. And for dinner tonight, they have requested that we make homemade pizza. So I'm going to go take care of the things that I got to take care of to make that happen. I'll see y'all Monday. Have a great weekend, and happy coding. Bye now.